This video contains spoilers for Disco Elysium. We all good on that? Excellent. Disco Elysium is a game that lingers. Long after the credits roll, it stays with you, not because of its mechanics or even its story, but because it asks something few games ever do. That question being, who are you? It's a game I've always struggled to categorize, an RPG without combat, a detective story where the greatest mystery is yourself, a political commentary wrapped in existential philosophy, and most interesting of all, a world that feels like a reflection of our own. When Disco Elysium was first announced, I wasn't sure it was for me. I had always loved action RPGs, games where you fight, grow stronger, and shape the world around you. But this was different, slower. To me, it looked like a visual novel, and that made me dismiss it outright. Maybe I wasn't ready for a game like this. I told myself that I would probably never play it, until one day the choice was made for me. A few years ago, I was at a bookstore with my girlfriend. Well, she wasn't my girlfriend at the time, but we had this idea. We'd buy each other a book, something special, something meaningful. I picked a novel which helped me through a dark time, and she picked Disco Elysium. It sat in my library for a while, waiting. I avoided it as long as I could, still convinced it wasn't for me. But eventually, I gave it a chance, and once I did, I only wish that I had played it sooner. This video is going to be a long one, so I recommend grabbing a drink or a snack for the ride. I have so many feelings about this game that I want to put into words, and I want to do all of them justice. As such, I will be splitting this video into 4 separate sections, each focusing on different aspects of Disco Elysium and explaining my thoughts about each of them before moving on to the next. For your viewing pleasure, I have added timestamps for each section and my thoughts in the description below. I believe this is important because there's nothing I hate more than long videos that basically just recap the entire game without adding any insights or commentary. And one last thing, this is my first attempt at a long form video like this, so please like and subscribe if you like what you see, and do let me know in the comments below if there's anything I can do to improve. And if you'd like to support me in pursuing YouTube full time, please check out my Patreon for exclusive perks. Without further ado, let's head into Revachol where we've got a hell of a hangover waiting for us. At first glance, Disco Elysium might seem like a straightforward detective story, but beneath the surface lies a wealth of intricate world building, layered narratives, and a profoundly nuanced exploration of themes like failure and identity. In Disco Elysium, we play a detective tasked with investigating a murder, the hanging of a man in the city of Revachol. Revachol is far from peaceful. The grotesque scene outside the hostel makes that painfully clear. This is compounded by the demonstrations and strikes erupting throughout the city, foreshadowing rising tensions and inevitable conflict. Revachol draws us in, a city steeped in history, brimming with conflicts underneath the surface, and scars that stubbornly refuse to heal. While there are numerous subplots and colourful characters to explore, I will focus on the heart of the story, the murder at its core. Our protagonist wakes up drunk, naked, and alone amidst the ruins of his destroyed hostel room. Despite the catastrophic start, we are tasked with solving the mystery of the man hanging from the tree. We piece the case together by interrogating a kaleidoscope of locals, union workers, corporate sharks, ideologues, and aging revolutionaries. Soon, the investigation spirals out of control, uncovering political tensions between the union, corrupt corporations, and the local gang. These tensions eventually erupt into violence between factions, forcing you to accelerate your investigation. Eventually, the culprit is revealed to be a reclusive sniper living on a nearby island, where you can extract a confession and motive before the game reaches its conclusion. As with most detective games, the case is far from black and white. Playing through reveals a tangled web of relationships, lies, half-truths, and events orbiting the body hanging from the tree. While the expected story beats of a detective or whodunit plotline are all there, the more compelling part of Disco Elysium's narrative is that we need to solve this mystery while also piecing together who we are. The murder mystery is only just the surface. As we delve deeper, it's not just the case we are unraveling, it's Harry himself.
You have no idea who this thing is, do you?
Just like the case, Harry is an enigma, haunted, shattered, and desperate to forget something. Why is he so determined to erase his past? What happened to his ex-love or ex-life? All of these questions are slowly answered throughout the course of the game as you begin to unravel not just the murder mystery tearing Revachol apart, but also piece together who Harry is. It's this combination that elevates Disco Elysium beyond the typical whodunit. Together, these dual plotlines form a narrative rich with themes of identity, failure, and perhaps most surprisingly, hope. There are so many different themes explored by Disco Elysium, its world, and its host of amazing characters. I have chosen 3 of my favorite themes explored by Disco Elysium and will run through each of them individually in the following section.
You were the worst client I've ever seen, and I have seen so many assholes in this place.
One of the most interesting and frankly scary questions we can ask ourselves is this: who are we without our memories and ambitions? And in Disco Elysium, we are not just asking this, we are living it through Harry, our protagonist, who becomes a proxy for this deeply unsettling level of self-introspection. From the very beginning, it's clear that Harry is a broken man with no memory, no direction, and no pretenses, just the haunting echoes of what might have been. As players, we step into his shoes and become co-authors of his identity, shaping who Henry is as the game unfolds. Every decision we make, no matter how profound or petty, shapes the kind of person Harry becomes. Whether it's choosing to show empathy to someone's sorrow or declaring that yes, karaoke or chain smoking is Harry's hill to die on, our choices become less about gameplay and more about self-reflection. This isn't just role-playing, it's identity building. It's a process anyone who has faced the chaos of puberty can relate to. Messy, humbling, and also profoundly human. Throughout the game, you see Harry struggle to remember his own name, his occupation, and ultimately who he is. But Harry is not alone in his quest for meaning. Revachol itself mirrors Harry's inner chaos, a city battered by hard knocks and haunted by its own scars. Every cracked pavement, faded mural, and bullet-ridden wall whispers stories of struggle, of identities lost and sometimes rediscovered. The district of Martinez, where our journey begins, still reels from destruction and poverty of conflicts long ago. And yet, life keeps pushing forward, for the city doesn't want to be this kind of animal anymore either. Harry's pursuit of meaning and identity mirrors the fractured world around him, creating a microcosm that brilliantly embodies the theme of identity. Then there's the thought cabinet. If Revachol is the external reflection of Harry's shattered self, the thought cabinet is his intimate counterpart. Thoughts like Hobocop or Wasteland of Reality profoundly alter Harry's worldview, shaping how he navigates relationships and wrestles with the demons of his past. These thoughts are acquired naturally through exploration, dialogue, and interaction, and each provides unique effects based on its influence on Harry's psyche. Beyond their gameplay benefits, they also yield specific insights about Harry's identity. One of my favorite examples of this is rigorous self-critique, which is gained by apologizing and picking self-deprecating dialogue options. Doing so allows you to pick up this thought which, once researched, reveals that our boy Harry has, let's say, some issues that he needs to sort out on his own. And what's crazy to me is that all of these thoughts hold unique nuggets of information like these and can only be revealed by going out into the world and doing all sorts of things like hitting inanimate objects, theorizing about the end of the world, or just putting on a set of pants. Each thought you choose and explore is like a puzzle piece, adding depth and slowly growing Harry's identity. What's brilliant here is that it isn't a static process. Harry's identity isn't fixed, it evolves with each interaction with others in our surroundings, mirroring the way thoughts and ideas take shape in real life. Take Kim Kitsuragi for instance, Harry's partner and fellow brother in arms. Kim is Harry's anchor and his foil, a steady force that challenges and also contains Harry's inner chaos. Whether it's the cryptic Everard Clare or the cunning Joyce Messier, the characters in Disco Elysium are more than just NPCs. They are mirrors and catalysts for Harry's transformation, and many thoughts for the cabinet can be acquired by just talking to the people you meet. And that's what makes Disco Elysium a masterpiece of narrative design in my eyes. It doesn't just hand you a fully formed protagonist, it offers you Harry, a fractured, vulnerable man shaped by both his potential for growth and the weight of his past failures.
The air tastes sour to breathe. Oh God, Harry. Oh God, Harry. What did you do?
After all, on the path to self-discovery, we will stumble and fall. And those failures are not setbacks, but stepping stones that make us human.
In dark times, should the stars also go out?
Disco Elysium tackles the theme of failure in a beautiful and nuanced way, treating it not as an end-all be-all, but as an inevitable and transformative part of the human experience. Harry is not a hero in the traditional sense. Far from it, actually. He's a man who has failed on nearly every front. His marriage, his career, his physical health. Even his attempt to forget these failures through substance abuse has left him utterly broken. Ultimately, even his attempts to drown his failures in the chemical bliss of alcohol end in failure. And yet, the brilliance of Disco Elysium is that it never abandons him, or us, to despair. Instead, it invites us to explore the ways failure shapes and changes us, urging us to persist even when the odds are stacked against us. Mechanically, failure is everywhere in the game, and Disco Elysium embraces this wholeheartedly, starting with the way dialogue and skill checks are handled. White skill checks are commonplace throughout the game and are repeatable once you've gained a new level in their specific skill. This offers players a chance to try again after failure, sometimes armed with new information, perspectives, or connections from exploring Rebashol, adding modifiers to make these checks easier. Fail a skill check you really wanted to pass? That's okay, you can always come back later, better equipped to succeed. These systems don't punish failure, they encourage curiosity and persistence, reinforcing the idea that growth is part of trial and error. But then there are the red skill checks. These ones can't be repeated. Fail once and that option is gone for good. Brutal, right? But Disco Elysium cleverly sidesteps any frustration players might feel by offering alternatives to progress beyond failed red skill checks. Failing a red check might shut one door, but it often opens another, urging you to rethink your approach, adapt, and explore new possibilities. Instead of feeling like the end, failure becomes an opportunity to engage with the game's narrative in unexpected and oftentimes meaningful ways. Take Klaasje for example. Early in the game, if Harry clumsily asks her for a happy ending and fails to handle the situation delicately, it triggers a completely different set of dialogue options. Rather than closing off the interaction, this misstep leads to a surprising moment of lightheartedness and, dare I say, fun.
What was that? That's not even how words are used. What did you say? Come on, say it again. Come on, man. Pretty, please. One more time.
Klaasje smiles, even laughs at the absurdity of Harry's behavior. It's a striking shift in tone, offering us a glimpse of lightheartedness amidst the bleakness of the setting. After an intro sequence steeped in existential dread and self-loathing, I believe this interaction acts as a palate cleanser, a moment that reminds players of the absurdity and humor that's part of Disco Elysium. And in my eyes, this encourages you to embrace the game's unpredictability, to let go of perfectionism, and to see failure as part of the experience. In doing so, Disco Elysium invites you to lean into the weird and the bizarre, making every dialogue option, even the ones you fail, feel meaningful and interesting in their own right. A great example of how the game approaches failure is shown at the start of the game where you're trying to enter the docks. The obvious way of doing this is by going through the front door, except that it's guarded by a giant who you probably can't beat in a fistfight, unless you make Harry a peak physical specimen or roll high like me. Failing these two checks forces you to rethink your approach, and if you manage to discover Cuno's secret hideout, you are able to find another route into the harbour. This is brilliant because these mechanics are shockingly similar to our experiences in real life, because not every failure is a dead end and you can try again. And for those failures which act as a point of no return, it's up to you to improvise and find an alternative. And most importantly, failure doesn't define who you are. I personally struggled with this on my first playthrough back in 2021. I would save scum before major decisions in the game and re-roll till I got them right. I believed that I had to succeed on every check to get the most out of this game and experience it fully, but I only realized sometime later that I was approaching it with the wrong mindset from the very beginning. Legit, I would do this for white checks which had no major implication on the story, just going to show how petty I was all those years back. Unlearning this took quite some time, but it helped me appreciate how realistically failure is depicted and handled in this game. But the theme of failure isn't confined to mechanics, it's woven into the lives of every character in Disco Elysium. Take Harry, a man crushed by the weight of his failed marriage and struggling to numb the pain of an unlivable past. His substance abuse, his amnesia, it's all an attempt to run away from the wreckage of his life. It's safe to say that Harry has failed on multiple accounts throughout his existence, and yet the game never defines him by his failures, instead using them as an insight for growth. Kim Kitsuragi is no stranger to failure either. Having lost his former partner, Kim carries the unspoken weight of grief and professional disappointment. But rather than dwell on it, Kim pushes forward, channeling his pain into steadfast dedication. His support for Harry, his professionalism, it's all evidence of a man who refuses to be defined by his loss. This is solidified through the very first interaction, where Harry's gut tells him that despite his past failings, Kim would jump headfirst into danger to save Harry, his brother in arms.
If an assault were launched on this building right now, if the windows came crashing down and the whole world descended upon you, this man would hurl himself in death's way to save you. You are sure of this.
Klaasje is another striking example. She is haunted by the consequences of her past. Her work as a corporate spy not only ruined countless livelihoods, but also destroyed her closest relationship with her first boyfriend. And after completing her latest assignment against a massive corporation, she ran away. Fearing retaliation from her employers, Klaasje fled to Revachol under a false identity, attempting to escape the chaos she had created. But no matter how far she runs, she remains cursed to forever hide from the wreckage of her choices, a reflection of failure and its long, inescapable shadow. What's fascinating is how these personal narratives reflect the city of Revachol itself, a place battered by revolutionaries, scarred by ideological battles, and struggling with poverty and corruption. Revachol, like its people, has failed spectacularly. Its history is riddled with violence and plenty of tragedies. Yet, it refuses to collapse. Life in Revachol goes on, often grim and chaotic, but always pushing forward. A testament to resilience that mirrors Harry, Kim, and Klaasje, and the other characters we meet along the way. The city itself is a survivor. And yet, amidst all of the wreckage, a quiet resilience emerges. This is where hope takes root.
In honor of your will, Lieutenant Euphrator, that you kept from falling apart in the face of sheer terror, day after day, second by second. Detective arriving on the scene.
Hope for a better future, hope for a chance to make things right, and hope to do right by the ones that matter. Disco Elysium is a truly special game because it approaches hope in a raw and realistic manner and isn't afraid to break the rules. A great example of this is in other RPGs and mass media. Hope is almost always represented in a triumphant and glorious light, glowing brightly for all to see. It's loud and outwardly obvious, represented through valiant last stands, moments that rally the battered heroes together, or the moment the cavalry arrives to save the day. While all these are emotional and powerful in their own right, I believe that these representations fail to capture the raw and gritty nature of hope in real life. I was going through a particularly dark section of my life a few years ago, being conscripted to the army for 2 years. I was only 19 at the time. I felt hopeless, like I was wasting years of my life being a nameless grunt in the sea of thousands of other boys my age. It wasn't the physical agony from training every day, or the stomach aches from eating cookhouse slop that made me feel this way. If anything, it was the stripping away of my identity. I wore the same uniform, had the same crew cut hairstyle, and had my days planned out for me by our commanders. Everyone does the same things, at the same time, at the same place. We were no longer individuals, but part of a fighting force whose only role was to follow orders. It was brutal, and despite the circumstances, I somehow refused to give up. I willed myself out of bed when I was sore from obstacle course training. I winced as I strapped on boots over my blister-covered feet, and I pushed myself to take courses in the little free time we had every evening. I didn't want to do any of these things. I would have loved to just stay under the covers and claim that I was feeling unwell. But I didn't. I kept pushing on despite the weakness, the pain, and the reluctance I felt to stand up and get moving. When I was in the army, I didn't know why I did it, but now that I'm older, I think I understand why I kept going. It's because I refused to give up on myself. It was ugly and painful, but I held on to hope. Hope for my days in the army to end soon. This was the sole thought pushing me forward, and on my darkest days, it was my hope for this experience to end that kept me going no matter how horrible I felt. And that's what I believe Disco Elysium manages to capture so beautifully about hope. More often than not, hope isn't triumphant and show-offish. It's ugly, raw, and terrifyingly human. It's like a boxer who refuses to stay down after being bruised and bloody. A pianist who plays till their fingers give out from exhaustion. A teacher who stays late to help his students day after day. That's when hope manifests in its realest, purest form. Because hope isn't something you give to others with grand shows of success, but it is something you give yourself in those quiet moments where everything in life is telling you to give up, go home, and hide away. And when you give yourself that hope, you are the one picking yourself up to keep going, despite the horror of your past failures, terrifying present, or unknown future. That is hope. And this is seen everywhere in Disco Elysium. Revachol itself is battered and bruised. Everywhere you go in Revachol, there are signs of violence and war from its colourful past. Artillery explosions still litter the beachfront. Walls riddled with bullet holes from conflicts long ago. But yet, despite all of its scars and failures, the city's heart still beats. The people of Revachol still persist despite the poverty and destitution. And this persistence, this quiet defiance, is how hope is defined by Disco Elysium. Let's look at Kim. Beneath his stoic demeanour lies a man who has endured loss and disappointment. His former partner, a professional failure he carries silently, and the burdens of operating in a system rife with decay. Yet, Kim chooses to persist. His hope isn't loud or dramatic. It's in the way he shows up, day after day, doing his job not because it's glamorous, but because it matters. His unwavering commitment to justice and his belief in Harry's potential despite his chaos and inner turmoil exemplify the kind of quiet, gritty hope that pushes people forward. And then there's Harry himself, who, against all odds, still clings to hope, even if he doesn't realize it. Him, a man who has gone through such trauma that it could make anyone break down. A man who has lost everything, his wife, his career, his dignity. Harry's existence is an unrelenting series of failures. But beneath the self-loathing and the chaos, there's a spark that refuses to be extinguished. It's in his attempts to solve the murder, no matter how clumsy or misguided. It's in his drunken karaoke performance, a raw, vulnerable moment where Henry lays bare his pain and humanity. And even before this, at the start of the game, we are able to witness this quiet, ugly hope Harry carries with him. When you interact with the mirror in your trashed bathroom, you see a man who has lost everything, subconsciously forcing himself to wear what looks like a smile. It's hope that drives him to keep going, even when everything in his life screams that he should stop. For Harry, hope is messy and unpolished, but it's there, quietly urging him forward. Even minor characters embody this theme. Take Cindy, the graffiti artist. Cindy is someone who has seen the world at its worst: poverty, systemic neglect, and societal decay. And yet, she continues to create art in a seemingly cold and uncaring world. Her art isn't about beauty in the traditional sense. It's about defiance. It's a declaration that despite the rot around her, there is some worth in leaving her mark on the world. Hope in Disco Elysium also extends to Revachol's history and its people. The game never shies away from the city's brutality. Its wars, betrayals, and systemic failures are etched into its architecture, its streets, and its people. But among the ruins of its past and conflicts of the present, life continues on. The fishermen on the docks cast their nets each morning, truck drivers waiting for the strike to blow over to resume their jobs, and union workers gather to push for a better future. Children like Cuno and Cuno West survive in ways that may seem bleak, but are nonetheless acts of perseverance. Revachol is a city that refuses to die, and its people mirror that resilience. And perhaps the most meaningful depiction of hope in Disco Elysium lies in its ending sequence. First, you fully uncover the truth of the murder, and are able to wrap up this investigation for good. Whether Harry solves the case or stumbles through a haze of uncertainty, the game leaves one undeniable truth. Hope is not found in the grand, sweeping gestures, but in the small, personal moments of resistance against despair. It's the choices that Harry makes, the connections he forms, and the simple act of waking up each day to try again. Before you leave the island, you stumble upon a miracle, entirely by accident. The legendary Insulindian Phasmid, there in the flesh. If you pass an impossible red skill check, you can approach the creature and speak to it, one of the most profound conversations in the entire game. This makes it all the more bittersweet, knowing that this moment is missable if you fail. For over 1,000 years, the Phasmid has gone undetected by the countless people who have come and gone. It's a creature of mystery and persistence, hidden yet enduring, until Harry comes along. In my eyes, the Phasmid's existence, hidden from the world for over hundreds of years, is a parallel to Harry's own struggle for recognition and meaning. In finding the Phasmid, Harry isn't just witnessing a miracle, he is reminded of the fragile, persistent hope that keeps him going. The Phasmid embodies the most powerful thing I took away from this game. Even if the world doesn't see you, doesn't acknowledge who you are or what you do, you need to remind yourself that you exist. Because in the end, you are the miracle, your hope, your resilience, and your existence.
It must be incredibly hard. The Arthropods are in silent and meaningless awe of you. Know that we're watching. When you're tired, when the vision spins out of control, the insects will be looking on, rooting for you.
In Disco Elysium, hope isn't about saving the day or fixing the world. It's about the quiet, persistent belief that things can change, even when the odds are slim. It's about surviving, about finding meaning in the chaos, and about refusing to give in to despair. It's hope for yourself, hope for others, and hope for a better tomorrow, even if it's just a fraction better than today. Like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, I strongly believe that Disco Elysium wouldn't be such a great game without its characters. For it is they who breathe life into Revachol and carry the game's themes, ideas, and humanity. Every character is extremely well written and voice acted, and immediately leaves an impression on you once you've interacted with them in-game. It would be impossible to cover every single one of them in this video, and as such, I have selected 4 of my favourite characters to discuss during this next section of this video essay. I will structure my analysis of each character by discussing their traits and what I believe they represent to the broader narrative of Disco Elysium.
He is your half-brother. If an assault were launched on this building right now, if the windows came crashing down and the whole world descended upon you, this man would hurl himself in death's way to save you. You are sure of this.
The moment you meet Kim, you are immediately told that he would dive into mortal peril to save Harry, a man that he's meeting for the very first time. He doesn't need any other justification, just the simple fact that he and Harry are both cops is enough for him. This is a fantastic introduction to our counterpart from Precinct 57, and it sets the tone for how he approaches Harry's chaos and inner turmoil throughout their time together. And before you ask, yes, I am biased, Kim is my favourite character in this game, second only to Harry. Kim comes across as distant, yet strangely sympathetic to Harry's problems. Even though his professionalism initially creates a barrier, there's a warmth lurking beneath the calm, measured exterior. you quickly sense that his cool composure is backed by real-life experience, a deep understanding of what this job does to people over time. But as you progress through the game and spend more time with Kim, you realize that he cares far more than he lets on and just needs a little time to come out of his shell. A great example of this is when Kim offers Harry an Aces High after shooting the cops down from the tree without needing the help of the Hardy Boys, prime suspects in the case at this point in time. A far cry from the professional, buttoned-up facade he presents when we first meet him in the Whirling in Rags. Throughout your experience in Disco Elysium, Kim is always there to support Harry when he needs it most. One of the scenes that demonstrates this best is when Harry passes out from the sheer trauma of discovering a painful relic of the past hidden within his ledger. Without a second thought for his own precious motor carriage, Kim drags Harry's unconscious body to the vehicle and shelters him from the downpour, while standing guard outside until his partner comes to. To drive this point home, remember that Kim has known Harry for less than 24 hours at this point in time, a level of selflessness that few could match. And this isn't even counting the fact that he offers to sell some of his own prized possessions to help Harry if we don't have enough money to pay for the room at the Whirling in Rags at the end of the day. This is really interesting when you contrast his actions against his overall discomfort with emotional openness in conversation. To me, this signals that he is someone who is extremely empathetic to others' feelings, but is afraid or unsure of how to act on it due to past ridicule. I think this is clearest when we bring Kim to the secret pinball workshop next to the Whirling in Rags, where he reveals that one of his first assignments was to infiltrate a pinball ring, earning him a reputation and a nickname that he absolutely hates. Kim's reluctance to open up isn't confined to his professional facade, it also seeps into his personal interests as well. For instance, his hand-modified Kinema isn't just a vehicle, it's one of his most prized possessions. Yet, he never speaks of it, holding his tongue until Henry demonstrates that he's capable of appreciating Kim's handiwork. And only when Harry shows genuine curiosity about that world does Kim eventually let his guard down. It's as if he fears that exposing this part of himself might invite ridicule or misunderstanding, a vulnerability too precious to risk. And so, when a shared enthusiasm emerges, Kim allows a rare, intimate glimpse into his inner world, revealing the man underneath the otherwise stoic professional presence. Overall, this leads me to believe that Kim is someone who refuses to be pigeonholed. He hates being associated with just one facet of his identity. Whether it's his infamous pinball escapades and the unsavory nickname that followed, or his carefully guarded personal interests, he shuns any attempt at labeling him based on a single aspect of his life. Instead, Kim yearns to be seen in his entirety, as a man defined not solely by his race, his case history, or his hobbies, but by the full spectrum of his experiences. Kim is honestly one of my favourite characters of all time, and I had an absolute blast getting to know him throughout my numerous playthroughs of Disco Elysium. Beyond being extremely well written and thoughtfully crafted, he serves a greater purpose throughout the story as Harry's, and by extension, our guardian in an unfamiliar world. Because like Harry, we too are clueless about the world of Revachol, and Kim serves as an unwavering beacon of support, helping us get our bearings, supporting us when we need it most, and refusing to give up on Harry even when everyone else in his life has. And I believe this is the essence of Kim Kitsuragi and what he represents in Disco Elysium: hope. Kim represents many ideas to the broader narrative of Disco Elysium, but I believe that he best represents the idea of hope, while also serving as an excellent role model for Harry throughout the game. As we get to know Kim, we realize that he hasn't had a great life either, dealing with racial prejudice or his unreliable eyesight. But despite all of the hardships that he's been through, the man keeps it together. He keeps moving forward, never running away from his problems, and still gives his all to the city of Revachol, a city that he loves, even though the city and its inhabitants don't love him back. This is seen everywhere you go, but it is clearest in the Union and the Hardy Boys' refusal to acknowledge the RCM's legitimacy. Yet, despite all of the hurt and trauma he's endured, Kim Kitsuragi does not buckle or run away from the horrors of his existence. He stares down oblivion through his glasses and keeps moving forward. This is in stark contrast to Harry, who tries to run away from his problems through substance abuse and attempts to forget his past altogether. Kim's unwavering resolve becomes a beacon for Harry, an unspoken challenge to the very notion of escapism. While Harry seeks refuge in temporary fixes to forget or numb the pain of his past, Kim endures, facing every burden head-on. His quiet persistence and refusal to run from his reality serve as a powerful reminder that confronting one's demons is not a sign of weakness, but an act of tremendous courage. In the grim world of Revachol, where despair and disillusionment threaten to engulf the soul, Kim's steadfast commitment to duty and honor offers a tangible glimmer of hope. For Harry, whose path is marred by self-doubt and avoidance, Kim stands as both a role model and a lifeline, a call to face the hardships rather than flee from them. I believe this can also be observed from his portrait as well. Kim's head is encircled by a soft white halo which illuminates his features and gives his signature orange bomber jacket a warm glow. The white halo is traditionally seen as a symbol of holiness and the divine, used to depict saints, religious figures, or those considered extraordinary in religious iconography. I suspect this is how Harry views Kim, an extraordinary person who, unlike him, refused to give in to his own despair, and throughout the game, Kim serves as both a role model and Harry's biggest supporter through thick and thin. And ultimately, this is what I believe Kim represents to the broader story of Disco Elysium. He is a reflection of who Harry strives to be, and only through meeting Kim and accepting his generous support, care, and brotherly love can Harry climb out of the pit of despair of his own making.
A bad memory, officer. It's the past. People can't go back to the past.
Klaasje is the first person we speak to at the start of the game, and she immediately stands out. Her edgy charm, raspy voice, and striking attractiveness are so compelling that even a heavily hungover Harry's first few thoughts revolve around asking her for a happy ending. She's an enigma throughout the story, constantly throwing wrenches into people's plans, disrupting the Hardy Boys' complex cover-up and even framing Ruby for the hanging of Lely. When you first speak to her, you can immediately notice her distinct manner of speech.
Right then. Looks like I should go and prepare for what's to come. And thank you. This has been delightful.
Klaasje speaks with an exhausted, almost defeated cadence, signaling her feelings about her career as a corporate spy and the consequences of that line of work. This is further cemented later when she expresses her sadness that her work led to good people losing their livelihoods, and that it has turned her into a fugitive, running from both her employers and the people that she has hurt. It turns out that after her latest assignment screwed over a big corporation, she ditched the rendezvous with her employers out of fear that they were going to kill her. After all, the job was done and now she was just a liability. Consequently, she escaped to Revachol, where she has been hiding for months, engaging in an intense regimen of partying, sex, drugs, booze, and karaoke, an attempt to run away from the consequences of her actions and forget the pain she has inflicted on others and herself. Her lack of inhibitions is evident in her casual approach to intimacy, as she freely engages with the hostel goers, including entanglements involving members of the Hardy Boys and mercenaries from Wild Pines. This impulsive behavior appears to be another means to momentarily escape the weight of her past. There is a sense of tragedy in the way Klaasje constantly runs from her past. Her substance abuse and casual flings aren't just a means to forget. It's a desperate attempt to outrun the betrayals and existential disappointments that have defined her life so far. Although she wears a disarming smile and an indifferent attitude, every encounter hints at the internal struggle churning within her. Her history of fleeing from responsibilities, using her wit as both a shield and a weapon, reinforces her reputation as someone ensnared in contradictions, a woman who desperately seeks freedom yet seems doomed to forever run from her past mistakes. And even though we have the decision to let her escape in Disco Elysium, the question remains, how long can she keep running? In my eyes, Klaasje is a cautionary tale about the inability to confront one's past. While she parallels Harry in her flight from reality, she is even further gone. Where Harry tried to drink himself into oblivion in a single night, Klaasje has embraced a hedonistic lifestyle for months on end. According to the Hardys,
she has an actual drug problem. Not like you. Not like us.
Her substance abuse even dwarfs Harry's own, exemplifying the darker allure of escapism through both substance abuse and casual intimacy. Everything we learn about her throughout the game signals that her life is defined by a desperate, constant running from the ghosts of her past, whether by numbing the pain through intoxication or seeking fleeting solace in physical encounters with others. In her fruitless quest to escape her past, she ends up hurting even more people around her, betraying Ruby's trust, spitting on the Hardys who had banded together to help her out of a bind, and ultimately isolating herself even further. She serves as a vivid reminder that while running away might offer a fleeting sense of peace, it ultimately deepens old wounds, opens new ones, and fixes nothing. Her arc is a self-fulfilling prophecy, one in which she is doomed to forever flee from the spectres of her past mistakes, hurting more people with each escape. I believe Klaasje challenges us to confront the perils of never facing our inner demons, highlighting the dire consequences of allowing escapism to dictate our lives. This is also seen in her portrait, which depicts a beautiful young woman with strong features painted in striking colours that gradually fade into whiteness. I believe this visual metaphor represents how Klaasje's relentless pursuit of escape and her self-destructive coping mechanisms are slowly erasing her identity. Ultimately, I believe Klaasje represents the consequences of failing or refusing to reconcile with our past. And through her, we learn that every time we run away or numb ourselves from our failures, we only succeed in bringing ourselves closer to ruin.
You think I'm fucking stupid, cop? What if I just shot one of your pals here, right now, huh?
If Klaasje represents the pitfalls of escapism, Raul Kortanaer represents the dangers of failing to manage one's anger and impulses. We meet Raul at the beginning of the game, who is disguised as a scab leader. Raul serves as one of the main antagonists in Disco Elysium. He is a massive man, rivaling the colossal Measurehead in stature. A seasoned private military contractor, he is described as relentless and morally compromised, much like his brother, the deceased Lely. During the events of the game, Raul and his team were tasked by Wild Pines to monitor the unfolding strike and organize the strikebreaker effort. However, the situation escalated with the hanging of Lely, which ultimately led to Raul and his team preparing for a retaliatory strike against the people of Martinez, unfolding in the form of the deadly mercenary tribunal. Raul's inability to control his temper becomes his undoing. Instead of following the plan set by his superiors, his unchecked rage leads him to make impulsive decisions that backfire spectacularly. His reckless actions not only sabotage Wild Pine's operation, thereby inadvertently giving the Union additional support, but also set in motion the collapse of his own team, leaving many of his men either killed or incapacitated, depending on how the confrontation goes. Raul's character represents the simple truth that acting out one's anger in a destructive manner is ultimately self-defeating. Where such acts of rage might feel liberating in the short run, they often have consequences far beyond personal ruination.
Cuno's gonna go out in a hail of bullets. Gonna look like a fucking porcupine.
And last but not least, Cuno, Big C, Mr. Maximum Velocity himself. Cuno is a loud, foul-mouthed, speed-addicted youngster whose unruly behaviour is impossible to ignore. He is introduced to us in an already unsavoury manner, pelting stones at the corpse of the hanged man. Raised in the gritty Cape Side apartments and scarred by his father's violence and narcotics-related behaviour, Cuno grew up in an environment where brutality and raw power were the norm. This is clearest where you can gain his respect by successfully punching him in the face. Having dropped out of school 2 years prior to the events of Disco Elysium, Cuno now roams the derelict streets of Martinez doing whatever he wants with the she-gremlin Cuno-S by his side. Whether he's vandalizing public property, building up his makeshift shack, or hurling insults at Kim and Harry as they work, I believe that Cuno's disruptive antics serve as both a cry for recognition and a defiant rejection of societal constraints and indifference. His energy and attitude not only mark him as a serious nuisance but also reflect a deeper tragedy. He is a product of a system that has long neglected its marginalized youth. In many ways, Cuno is a mirror reflecting the rough, rebellious spirit that Harry may have known in his youth, as both grew up experiencing various hardships. According to the insights hinted by the 15th Indo-Tribe thought, many of Revachol's lost children were forced into paths of delinquency because of a cruel and indifferent world. Harry was one of these children, which leads me to believe that Cuno is a reflection of who Harry was in his youth. Yet, within this reflection lies a chance for growth. During the end of the game, if Kim is injured by the events at the tribunal, we are able to bring Cuno along with us and even recruit him to the RCM. A possibility hinted all the way back during the field autopsy, where Cuno watches in awe as Harry fishes the bullet out of the hanged man's skull. And in doing so, Harry can offer Cuno a structured path away from self-destruction or wasting his days away with Cuno S, helping him channel his energy and enthusiasm into a force for good. In this light, Cuno becomes not just a mirror for Harry's youth, but represents an opportunity for Harry to make peace with his turbulent younger self by nurturing the future generation, helping them steer clear of his mistakes. To me, Cuno embodies the idea of second chances. He is a living testament that even the most wayward souls can be guided onto a better path with understanding, guidance, and a bit of hope. And more importantly, he serves as a reminder that no matter how bleak things seem in the here and now, change is possible if we are willing to look for it. Now that we've covered the broader narrative themes of Disco Elysium and some of the characters that help tie this narrative together, let's talk about gameplay. It's actually pretty simple, but don't let that fool you. It's really fun if you're a big fan of the Sherlock Holmes style internal monologue Mind Palace stuff. The game revolves around you controlling Harry and exploring Martinez alongside Kim and piecing together the mystery by interacting with locals and your surroundings. Interacting with these people or objects brings up a dialogue strip on the right side of the screen before narration and voice acting kicks in. This is the majority of the game, and if I'm being honest, the game is really carried by its outstanding writing and phenomenal voice acting. For this section, I will skip over the basic mechanics since the game's health and morale mechanics are fairly straightforward. Instead, I will dive into what I feel makes Disco Elysium stand out from a gameplay perspective. And for me, that has to be how skills are handled. Unlike other RPGs where you have stats and attributes like strength, intelligence, agility, and so on, Disco Elysium builds on these systems in a genius manner. First, the game expands upon traditional stats like strength and constitution, combining them into a single attribute called physique. And under physique, there are numerous skills which account for different facets of Harry's physicality. Skills like endurance, pain threshold, physical instrument, and so on. These are fairly realistic, helping adding a little more depth to stat distributions and what they mean for the player. After adding skills to various attributes, Disco Elysium also gives them personalities and has them chime in during your conversations.
Shoot him in the mouth. Shoot him before he shoots you. No, wait. It's good you have that gun. It really is. Just soften him up first. Even if it comes to a fight, it's always a good idea to drag it out first. Get under his skin. I don't know about this getting under his skin. What if he gets under yours? Peace.
Giving you additional insight or potentially misleading you depending on your mastery of said skills. All 24 of these skills have their own unique personalities and prerogatives. For example, electrochemistry is the party animal of the house and loves all things bad for you. You name it, he wants it. Encyclopedia knows facts about the world and the things around you, but doesn't offer any way to actually use that information. That is, unless, of course, you have high stats in things like logic, rhetoric, or suggestion. And when you combine this with the game's system of active and passive skill checks, you get a delightfully unique system that changes your experience on every playthrough, assuming you specialize in a different set of skills. I absolutely adore this system because for me, it is an excellent representation of what goes on inside our heads when we are actively engaged in conversation. It's those inner monologues where we think for a split second before we respond, making use of our past experiences and everything we have learned up till this point in time. I want to specifically highlight the physique and motorics checks, which involve Harry doing something with his body. I play a fair bit of badminton with my friends, and that feeling of time slowing down, that millisecond or two where you feel the world around you not through your eyes or ears but through your entire body, is described perfectly. I feel it when I dive down to save the point, or when I'm hanging in the air just for a brief moment before smashing the shuttlecock across the court. To see that feeling described in such a perfect manner repeatedly is just nothing short of amazing to me. Beyond stats and attributes, you are also able to overcome hard skill checks by exploring the world and discovering contextual information about the case itself, making it easier to pass the checks. A great example of this is getting Titus to give up Ruby's location near the midpoint of the game, where you need to gather evidence which implicates Ruby in the case, ranging from hidden weapons caches from the Revolutionary days, the hidden pinball workshop that leads to Klaasje's balcony, and pointing out that she disappeared around the same time of the murder. All of these stack modifiers in your favor and make it easier to progress through the story. This rewards exploration and helps build a satisfying gameplay loop where failing checks are not the end of the world, as exploring often gives you experience and skill points, allowing you to retry the checks as much as you need. One final thing about why this system is genius in my eyes is that at its core, despite all 25 skills behaving differently from one another, they are all part of Harry's inner psyche and monologue. This is how he reasons with himself, and we, the player, are privy to this information. And as such, Harry is a human being just like us, and human beings make mistakes. This is integrated so well in Disco Elysium that when multiple skills are providing their opinions at the same time, you are forced to decide who is right and who is wrong. The best example of this is seen in our second chat with Klaasje, where if Harry has high enough volition, catches that his thinking is being compromised because of Klaasje's attractiveness. And all of the other skills like logic and rhetoric start arguing amongst each other.
She's beautiful. I have bad news for you. You know these guys? Who? Me? Yes, you. He's talking about you, you boring stiff. You too. Me? What did I do? I'm merely a master thespian. These guys are compromised. She's got them singing along to her tune. The little bleeps and bloops you trust for info, you can't trust them anymore.
I know I sound like I'm glazing at this point, but yes, I am. This is so goddamn accurate to real life that I don't even know where to begin. Anyone who has ever had a crush in their childhood or adolescence will know how it feels. It's so hard to think straight when someone you find extremely attractive is right in front of you. Part of you wants to think rationally, but the other part of you is hopelessly infatuated with them and just wants to see the good in what they say or do. And you are forced to choose. How do you act now that you know that you can't trust yourself completely? No one can give you the right answer, so just do what you feel is best, and that's all anyone can ask for. And in the end, Disco Elysium's gameplay isn't just a game about rolling the dice. It's a striking reflection of our inner thoughts. We don't always get to pick and choose every thought that races through our minds, but we retain the power to decide how we act upon them. This system of dynamic, personality-rich skills mirrors the messy voices in our heads that define our everyday decisions. God, what a beautifully written game. I wish I could speak with the writers just for an afternoon so that some of their genius can rub off on me. Ultimately, what I find most memorable about Disco Elysium is this. In a world where we may not control every thought, we still have the moral clarity and strength to choose our actions. And it's in these choices, as reflected in both the gameplay and its narrative heart, that Disco Elysium transforms into a genuine reflection of reality. If you've made it till this point in the video, I sincerely thank you for sticking with me through this exploration of Disco Elysium's themes, writing, and characters. Believe it or not, this is just really scratching the surface of what this beautiful game has to offer, and that's honestly what I love so much about Disco Elysium. It explores so many different things all at the same time with such a degree of depth and realism to them that it is honestly hard to find in many of the games that we play. I believe that Disco Elysium is a work of interactive art that is a chillingly accurate reflection of the grey world that we live in today. And through this grounded approach to world building, Disco Elysium encourages players to explore unsettling levels of self-reflection, overcoming past trauma, and dealing with failures both old and new through Harry, and also handles these issues with raw, gritty humanity. And it's this approach to realism that makes me believe that Disco Elysium is one of the greatest RPGs of our time, and I strongly recommend everyone to give it a try. But before anyone gets pissed off, no, I'm not saying it's a perfect game. It does have some issues, particularly the 3D character models being pretty ugly if you take a closer look, and sometimes narration doesn't sync up properly with the text shown on screen.
Trickle of tobacco spit on his lip. This is the only option he cares for.
But overall, these issues are minor and don't detract from my experience with Disco Elysium. I truly wish that the devs at ZAUM would continue to develop amazing titles using this beautiful IP that they have created, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. If you've been keeping up with the controversy around ZAUM, the developers of Disco Elysium, it is unlikely that we will be getting any follow-up to this franchise. I am not the best person to describe this situation, but you can go and have a look at the videos here and here for a rundown of what's going on with the studio and its original creators. But if you don't have time for it, I will quickly summarize. Disco Elysium's core team and founding members were ousted by management at ZAUM, who basically stole the ownership of the Disco Elysium IP from the original team. ZAUM then issued a generic corporate apology to the community backlash and have worked on basically nothing new for the game outside of photo mode. And now, 4 years after the release of Final Cut, the corporate insects who ousted the original creators put out their newest project, a fucking mobile port for Disco Elysium. I don't even know what to say at this point. I actually have no words. They took one of the most unique IPs in the world, stole it from the original creators, and also took it upon themselves to bastardize the game into some shitty mobile visual novel. The worst part about all of this is that Disco Elysium was only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the world that the original creators had in mind, and now we may never get to see the rest of this world brought to life. But at this point, the damage has already been done, and frankly, there's not much we players can do other than refusing to buy anything else that the insects at ZAUM put out. And while we may never get to experience the world of Disco Elysium again in the near future, we can appreciate what the team have achieved in the here and now. And in a sick twist of irony, Disco Elysium being a one-hit wonder is an extremely disco thing to happen. A game which critiques the all-powerful nature of capital falls victim to greedy investors, screwing over the original artists while simultaneously forcing regular workers to suffer under crunch and horrendous working conditions demanded by investors. It's just sad, really. But I don't want to end this video on a negative note. I choose to see the value in what the original team has brought to life and will forever cherish their work. And I say again, I truly believe that Disco Elysium is one of the greatest games of our time, and its legacy goes beyond the turmoil at ZAUM. While the future of this franchise remains uncertain, the original creators gave us something truly special. A game that not only challenges us to think of who we are and what we've done, and what more we want to do, but also stops to show that amidst trauma, failure, and hardship, hope remains, if you're willing to give it to yourself. Thank you so much for watching.